This episode was recorded in the Sydney Borough studio, and you are listening to the Wholesome Way podcast, hosted by Alexander Lobb. Please keep in mind, everything shared in this podcast is for inspiration only and shouldn't be taken as medical or professional health advice. If you're making changes to your health routines or lifestyle, please check in with our qualified health professional first. Nothing beats some quality time face to face. And now that I'm back in Sydney, I've organised a launch party for the podcast community on Sunday, the 16th of November, 2025. Join me and other like minded listeners of the podcast to connect in person, share wholesome conversations, have a few laughs, and be part of a growing tribe of wonderful humans exploring ways to live with more joy, balance, and purpose than ever before. Together, we'll celebrate season 1, get a sneak peek of season 2, and take part in a few guided moments of bliss through meditation, movement, and reflective writing. Book your spot now on Eventbrite via the link in the description, and I'll see you there. And now, on with the episode. G'day, and welcome back to the Wholesome Way podcast. You're listening into episode 3 of season 2, a solo episode. I wanted to share a little bit about my experience in building my healthiest form, which is the theme of season 2, and a topic that I've been very passionate about recently just because of the effects and the benefits that I've seen for my own self and my own body. Fasting. But before we dive into the topic of fasting, I wanted to tell you a story that I read in a book called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. And in this book, Vishen talks about how to live an extraordinary life. And to start doing that, we first need to understand a truth about our reality and our belief system and how we live our life. And that is that we have to understand two things. In our reality, in our lives, there are absolute truths and there are relative truths. An absolute truth would be something like, if I throw my ring up into the air, it's always going to come back down. I'm going to catch it. There are not many scenarios where I would throw that up into the air and it's not going to come back down. So the law of physics, that's something that's unchangeable. It's absolute. A relative truth would be something like, I need to drink 2 liters of water per day because that's how I survive. That may or may not work for everyone. You might only drink one, there might be people that only drink 1 liter of water and they will still survive. And they will still be able to live their life, potentially even live to the age of 90. So that's a relative truth, something that we have been told from a young age, but may not actually be necessarily a truth, an absolute truth. So Vishen talks about in this book, questioning our belief system. And he talks about a visit that he had to a tribe in the Ecuadorian Amazon, where the Achua tribe do not drink water. Clean, drinkable water to them is distasteful. It's unusual. And they drink a specific liquid in a very unusual way, something that's very strange to us as in the Western world. And what they do is they have access to vegetation, such as the yucca root, but they do not have access to clean, drinkable water. They have access to the river, but that's where they clean themselves, that's where they bathe, and so it's not drinkable. So instead of drinking water from a water source, they harvest, boil, and mash up this yucca root. And the women of the tribe, it's their main responsibility to chew this root, spit into a bowl, and let that bowl of saliva ferment over time, over a few days. and it becomes this sort of beer liquid called chicha, which they drink. It's their alternative to us drinking clean water from a fresh water source. But they don't drink water; they drink chicha, and that was an interesting insight into a different belief system. Water, clean water to them, drinking that is distasteful and strange, and they don't believe in it. Just like we don't believe in drinking chicha, this fermented beer spit, as our water source. And so I wanted to give you that insight into that story because fasting is definitely another way of being able to live our daily lives and potentially not eat as many, we don't have to eat as many meals as we think we do. Okay, so what is fasting? Essentially, fasting is just the abstinence of food and drink for a given period of time. And recently, it's become very popularized in the world as we have more access to information in the health space. We have podcasts, we have health influencers, articles, even in scientific journals about the benefits and the risks and the impact of fasting on our bodies as humans. Whilst it has become quite a popular topic and people are starting to experiment in this, it's actually not an old concept. It's been around for hundreds, even thousands of years in many different cultures around the globe. You might have heard of Ramadan, in which they engage in fasting for religious purposes. Fasting has also been practiced as for medicinal purposes in many different religions as a way of improving your body and for longevity. Scientifically, there's been many studies performed, such as in the National Institute of Health in America, on the benefits and also the risks of fasting to our body. Some of them include slowing down the aging process, preventing disease in our bodies, improved brain function, enhanced metabolism. The list goes on. One particular benefit piqued my curiosity, which was this process called autophagy, in which our body, when we, in the absence of food and drink over a period of time, because it's not processing any food, it starts to eat away at dead cells. A regenerative process in which waste material in our cells is essentially eaten and expelled, and that provides growth for new, healthy, regenerated cells to make our cells healthy and for longevity over time. And the reason why I wanted to delve into this topic today is to give you an insight into first the science, but also from my experience recently in intermittent fasting, which you might have heard of, and also multi-day fasts, and what that looked like from my perspective, and to inspire you to think more critically about your health and building your healthiest form. My experience in fasting has been very much a positive one, and I'm very passionate about it these days. It's why I decided to do this episode with you. I was first inspired to fast maybe about 4 years ago. A friend of mine who's very conscious about his health, he's a very fit guy, told me that he was fasting for improving and boosting his energy levels and also doing a detox of his body. And I was very interested by that. I knew what detoxing was, and you have built up toxins in certain areas of your body, especially in our gut, in our stomach, where we might potentially eating bad food, drinking relatively bad drinks. And this really piqued my curiosity. So I decided to engage in intermittent fasting, which is abstaining from food specifically and low calorie drinks once
twice, sometimes 3 times a week. So, and what that intermittent fasting looks like is I would eat dinner around 8 p.m., 9 p.m. at night, and then I wouldn't eat until lunch the next day. 16, around about 16 hours minimum between those two meals. In the mornings, I would only have water, a black coffee, which is very, very low calorie, and or electrolytes or tea until lunchtime. And so my friend inspired me. I started doing it, and immediately after a few weeks, I saw the health benefits, specifically brain function, processing, and focus. I found I was able to express myself and articulate myself quicker than usual without umming and ahhing, thinking about what I'm trying to say. It was just happening that much faster. I also noticed it improved energy levels in the mornings. I didn't feel lethargic from eating a big brekkie like we normally do. We eat the 3 meals a day, huge breakfast to power ourselves throughout working, exercising. But I actually found the opposite. Whilst I had nothing in my stomach, I was finding that I could work out better. I was performing better. I was lifting more. I was running faster and farther. And I was feeling productive and efficient in the tasks that I was doing intellectually in my job. So that really fascinated me. So I continued doing that. I've been doing that for about 4 years now, intermittently fasting twice a week. And so that really worked for me. Then earlier this year, I watched an episode of Limitless, which is a documentary series filming Chris Hemsworth, the famous actor, on his journey fasting as part of the process to learn about longevity for his own life. In this episode, he engaged in a 4-day fast. No food, only water. Still going about his day, doing everything he does, acting, working out, all of the above. And learning about the health benefits and seeing him go through that process was fascinating to me because I'd done intermittent fasting. I'd already seen the benefits, but a 4-day fast, that sounded really tough. But I wanted to do it. And so in March this year, when I was in the UK, I took a few days off moving houses, and I decided to do a 4-day fast. No food, only water, black coffee, electrolytes, and tea at usual meal times. And the realizations and the insights and lessons that I came to through feeling in my body were intriguing. So, with all that in mind, that sounds great. Maybe it might not be for you, so you might be thinking, why should I fast? We've talked about the health benefits, the physical health benefits that I've experienced as well, intermittently fasting, having a sharper mind, brain functioning, and memory processing. That's one of the health benefits that I was able to recognize straight away. Another is improving your gut, so preventing, gut disease, for example. When I did this 4-day fast, I literally felt my body starting to eat away at toxins, and that's the stomach rumbling, but even more sharp, even more sharp sensation in my stomach, which is that process of autophagy, getting rid of the bad cells, getting rid of the waste material, all that alcohol that I drank, or all the greasy processed foods, the stuff that your body can never get to because you're always eating 3 times a day. So your body never has a chance to slow down. And so that was one of the benefits, another physical health benefit that I found on this 4-day fast and from intermittently fasting over the course of 4 years. Now, I would definitely encourage you to do your own research on this. This is very much to inspire you rather than actual health advice, as I've mentioned. So have a look at the scientific evidence wherever you get your information. Maybe talk to other people who have engaged in it themselves. Because the one thing that I want to encourage and inspire people about is thinking more critically about how to build your healthiest form to live a healthy, balanced life. And we do there is not only one way to do that. There are many ways from different cultures and from all the incredible studies that are being done scientifically and empirically these days. Now, as I mentioned, there are physical health benefits, but there are also more intrinsic reasons to do this fast, and ones that I found in my experience personally. The first is fasting is going to create an incredible amount of resilience and patience. Sitting there at the table, watching my partner eat her food in front of me, only being able to drink a tea or a black coffee at meal times, or just water, was incredibly difficult because you're basically rewiring your body to say, I'm not allowed to eat at this time. There's food in front of me, but I'm not allowed to eat that food. And so you're creating this resilient side of yourself to also be able to apply to many other different habits that you might have that you want to change. Not sleeping in, for example. Getting up when the alarm gets off, getting yourself out of bed and not getting back in. Another might be having a cold shower instead of a hot one that makes you feel it's very pleasurable, it's very comfortable, getting you out of that comfort zone to embrace yourself in something new, something unknown. So it's creating resilience and also patience, waiting for that food after the fasting period that you're engaging in. Another is gratitude. After doing this 4-day fast, which I was aiming for 96 hours, but I cut it to 72 because it was very difficult and I had other things going on the fourth day that I needed to be switched on for. So I cut it a little bit short. But gratitude, man, that first meal after I'd finished the fast was probably one of the best meals that I've ever had. Very simple, chicken and mushroom risotto with my partner, sitting down, and that first spoonful, it's making my mouth water now. It was just incredible. And I have so much more appreciation for when I eat now. And I eat even slower than I have before, tasting every single ingredient, appreciating how it was made and where the ingredients came from. And you just feel so much more gratitude for food. And that it makes you think, some people can't eat this amazing food that we have available in the Western world. And they might not be able to eat 3 meals a day. So you have this next level appreciation for culinary food experiences and drink experiences. And finally, presence. One of the most profound realizations that I came to when I wasn't eating and sitting down, I think it was on day 3. And this comes back to the absolute and relative truths of our reality. I found myself thinking about eating, wanting to eat, but my stomach wasn't hungry at all. And so that made me think, why do we eat? And I thought about that. I examined that moment, why I was thinking like that and why it wasn't in sync with what I was feeling in my body. And I came to the realization that we often eat because we are bored and we are filling time. If you think about it, you might be sitting down at your desk, you finished your work for half day at 12 p.m. And what do? You get up, you get away from your desk, might go for a walk, but you think, time to eat. You may not necessarily be hungry, but because you have been conditioned almost, you have taught yourself that 12 p.m., 1 p.m., that's lunchtime. I got to eat now. But you may not necessarily be hungry, but you kind of do it anyway. Why? And that was the most profound realization that I came to, that we don't necessarily have to eat 3 meals a day. We can function, but we eat because we are bored. We don't know what to do with ourselves except outside of working or engaging in activity except eat. And so that's given me a lot more understanding and reasoning on why I need to fast, because I need to spend more time being present and not just thinking about going to eat the next meal. And so I found myself just sitting there, maybe at lunchtime, maybe I'm not hungry, and just appreciating my surroundings, being present, letting my thoughts process, letting my body process and slow down and start to repair itself and start to what we call engage in active recovery, where your body gets time to do its thing. It doesn't have to focus on processing food or sending sugar to the brain. It can just recover. So this is how it went down. The 4-day fast, which turned into a 3-day because it was very, very difficult. And I was happy with finishing at day 3 after 72 hours of no food. Day 1, because I'd been intermittently fasting over the past 4 years, that first 24 hours was actually relatively easy. I didn't feel hungry at all. I drank water, tea, and black coffee at meal times so that I could share that experience with sitting with my partner, being able to eat at the same time or consume, if you like, at the same time as her. Day 2, a little bit more tricky. My body started to feel a little bit exhausted in the way that it wasn't getting the same nutrients, the same food into the stomach as it had in previous days. So there was a bit of an early rejection. And that happens when you start to do new things and experiment with new things with your health. When you're trying something new, your body will reject it because it's not used to it yet. It's just like training and lifting more weights. Your body feels pain because it hasn't done this before and it's building resilience. But overall, I felt maybe one pang of hunger on that second day, but overall, relatively straightforward. Day 3, I definitely felt my body starting to eat away at those toxins inside my stomach specifically, but I still felt switched on. My brain was alert. So overall, the experience was highly beneficial, very insightful for me and in my journey of building my healthiest form. And I will continue to intermittently fast from the benefits that I've seen with brain functioning, detoxing, especially if if I've had food poisoning or if I've eaten a really unhealthy meal because that was the only thing that was available. If I've had some alcohol that wasn't sitting right in my stomach, I will usually fast the next day to detox and let my body process that and expel it so that I'm feeling healthy, I'm feeling energetic, and can perform at my highest ability. So, we've talked about what fasting is. We've talked about why it might be beneficial. And I talked about my experience. The last thing I wanted to provide is obviously practical steps on how you might be able to integrate a bit of fasting into your routine if you're interested in it and if you think it will be beneficial. So I've got a 4-step process which I've come up with to experiment with fasting. Number 1, do your own research. Find out your reasons. Maybe you can ask your doctor. Maybe you could ask people who have engaged in fasting before, someone close to you, health experts, anyone in that realm on fasting in general, from what they've seen from their professional experience. And if you like what you hear, then you could research the benefits, the many different benefits of fasting, which we've talked about, and pick just one reason why you think you would want to do fasting, why you think it might help you. So, for example, you might be feeling quite lethargic in the morning. You can't do work until 12 p.m. after you've had your lunch. If that's your situation, maybe you could try fasting to improve your cognitive function so that you're able to speak quicker, you're able to perform at work better, in professionally or in an activity that you're engaging in. Ask around, do your due diligence, and find that reason why you would want to engage in fasting. The second is make it easy. Like any habit that we're trying to enforce for health benefits, health reasons, is make it easy. So you can do a number of things to make something easy. For example, you could have an accountability partner. Maybe you can convince your significant other or a family member to go on this journey together. Maybe you could set one day a week where you both don't eat until lunchtime, as an example. Put it in the calendar as well. So choose one, maybe two if you're keen, day to try fasting. So not eating until lunch. Maybe you want to eat breakfast and lunch and then not eat dinner. Maybe you can do it that way. There are many different ways you can do that for that period of time. I think the usual minimum is 16 hours. That's when your body has enough time to get rid of all the food and it can start doing its thing. Another thing might be don't walk past your favorite hamburger restaurant if you're going to the city for work. Try to make sure that your environment is set up where you're not going to be tempted to eat any of your usual foods, tasty foods, or snacks. So put them away, out of reach. That's going to make it a lot easier. And keep busy. Sit down for usual meal times, but have your favorite tea or a black coffee or just maybe even electrolytes in water. Something that you're able to sit down with someone and eat at the same time you normally would, but you won't eat food. So that's a few ways you can make it easy if you're going to integrate it, because it might be difficult at the start if you've never done it before. Step number 3, start small. Something like this might be quite difficult if you haven't done intermittent fasting before. So start small. Work up to, if you're interested, if you want to go to that multi-day fast, don't go straight into it. Work your way up. So maybe you can put in the calendar one day a week, one day where you don't have too much going on, so that you don't have to be, so that you're not going to be sluggish or frustrated that you can't eat on a day where you need to perform. So pick a day, a more quiet day of your week. Definitely have a journal that you can write in, or a piece of paper at the end of the day, just to write down how you felt, so that you're actually seeing and understanding the benefits and how it's affecting you. So you can choose whether to stop or continue going, just so that you're keeping track of what it's doing and if it's working for you. And number 4, this is one of the most important things, basic aspect of changing a habit or starting a habit like this one, is reward yourself. Maybe pick your favorite restaurant or your favorite brekkie place and reward yourself for doing that fast. Maybe you can do it the day of. So you've fasted from dinner the previous night until lunch. Go out that night for dinner for your favorite restaurant to reward yourself, and take your partner or take a friend, just to celebrate that you've started taking your health into your own hands and actually making a change. That's the best way to make it easy, to make it worth it, and so that it encourages you to then do it again if you're feeling like it's going to really change your life and you can see it every day. That's what I would suggest as a easy 4-step process to starting your journey in fasting. To conclude this episode on fasting, we've talked about many different things, and it may or may not be for you, and that is fine. This is one of the more, I wouldn't say extreme, but definitely more difficult changes to your health regime. So I would just say, like, do your due diligence. Work out if it's good for you. Ask around. Get your professional health advice from wherever you get that, and find your reason why you're going to do it. Because at the end of the day, your health is in your control, and you know what's healthy for you. If you are fully in a space of intuition and understanding of what your body is receptive to, what makes your body healthy and what doesn't. So work out if it's good for you, do your research, And then you can engage in some of the steps that I've suggested if you like. But ultimately, it's up to you. I have certainly had a fantastic experience with fasting, and I will continue to do it, especially after this 72-hour fast that I did in March. I'm going to do that every year now because it's a chance for my body to slow down, recuperate, regenerate those cells, get rid of that waste material, those toxins that are built up. And weekly, I love the increased brain function that I'm getting through intermittent fasting, not eating until lunch. At the end of the day, all this information I'm sharing with you, it's to help inspire you to build your healthiest form, because that's what we're in right now. We're in this world of such abundance of quality information, and especially in the health and wellness space. So this is an opportunity to learn something new, maybe experiment a little, to set you on your wholesome way in the physical realm. Hope you've enjoyed this episode and looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Stay wholesome.
I hope something resonated with you in this conversation and that you've taken a practical tip or two to set you on your wholesome way. If you liked what you heard, please give The Wholesome Way a follow on your podcast app so you know exactly when each weekly episode is ready to stream. And if you would like to be super generous with helping me grow the podcast, click the share button and send it via an Instagram story, a DM, or a WhatsApp message to someone in your family or close friends who would truly relate with the themes, ideas, and practical tips in this episode. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to listen today and for joining me on this incredible journey. Stay wholesome.